Hello, everybody. Jax West from Justice with Jax, Stephen Avery Project, MAM Gossip. This video should not be very long because there's not that much to say. Today was supposed to be day one of 3 days scheduled for the Marni Yang Stage 3 evidentiary hearing. Um, I brought a notebook. I bought a brand new notebook just for this week so I could take notes of what was happening in court. That's all I have. Let me read to you what's in my notes. All right, so court was scheduled to start at 9 a.m. At 9:21 a.m., we were finally let into the courtroom. There were signs saying that you couldn't take no recordings allowed. And so you had these signs in a couple of different spaces, and then right before the courtroom, there was a table set up with people sitting there with these bags that we then had to put our phone in, that they would lock our bags in, our phones in those bags, and so we would not be able to have access to our phones at all. um and then when you leave the courtroom, you give them at the table the bag, and the lock, it basically reminds me of those things they clip onto clothes so people can't steal them, and so you have to put them in some magnetic thing that then unclamps this thing to take it off. um so they were dead set on making sure that nobody was recording in that courtroom. And going into this, press wanted to be in there and filming. And then there's a documentary film crew that wants to do a documentary on Marni's case. And so all these people put in requests to be able to film, and they were all told no. And that just says to me, if you are so desperate to keep people from filming, recording, whatever, then to me that's saying you're doing something wrong and you're trying to hide something. I have never been to court before where my phone had to go in some locked bag. I then talked to the girls out there um, that were doing the bag thing. I'm like, is this something you do all the time? And they said, no, only for high profile cases. And they said the only other case that they recall doing it for is the Robert Cremo case. Um, I don't know if that's a case any of you would be aware of, but it was a 4th of July parade in Highland Park where this jerk off kid shot a whole bunch of people, killed a whole bunch of people. Um, so that's the only other time they said that they were blocking people from having access to their phones. I've attended multiple hearings at this courthouse for Marni, and we've always been able to bring our phones in, which that is not typical. A lot of courtrooms you cannot even bring your phone into the courthouse, but this has always been you can bring your phone in, you just can't use it. So now we had to lock up our phones. um Marni was wearing prison clothes. I know a request went in Many people probably don't realize this, but you have to jump through hoops in order to wear regular clothes to court if you are the accused or the defendant. Um, and they're going to deny you because they want you to look bad. They want, because if you see somebody wearing the prison clothes, it just makes you look guilty. So, Marnie was there, but she had to wear prison clothes. Aggravates me. Um, so I picked up Marnie's dad and brought Marnie's dad there. Marnie's daughter picked up Marnie's mom. And so that's all that was there was me and Larry and Fran and Emily, and then Emily had a friend who went with her. Everybody else who was seated in the courtroom were, as far as I know, they were either press or they were like law students or clerks. So, and there were 7 people that were seated in the press box. And sorry, one of my dogs just yelped. Um, and so the 2 reporters, one was from WGN and one was from ABC. I recognized both of those. The other people, I know there was somebody there. The only person who was allowed a camera in the courtroom was with the Chicago Tribune. And I went up to 2 other women and I asked who they were with, and they were with the Daily Herald. Um, So we were let into the courtroom at 9:21, where when this was supposed to start at 9. At 9:31, Marnie and the judge both came in around the same time. Um, Jed Stone, Marnie's attorney, had an amended witness slip. Um, and so they were talking about uh, things that are on the exhibit list. And so one of the things they were discussing is the Cyril Wecht video. There's 2 parts or 2 clips that Jed says totals a minute. Um, Cyril Wecht, Dr. Cyril Wecht, is a famous pathologist. Um, he has been involved in a ton of famous cases. If you Google his name, you will see that this is like a known expert. And so years ago, he looked over the Marni Yang case um, and came to his conclusion that Marnie is innocent. And so we have a video of Cyril Wecht saying that Marnie is innocent. And I have it posted on freemarniyang.com. So you could go to freemarniyang.com, go to I think the tab is, it's called docu series. So go there and you can see why Cyril Wecht says that Marni Yang is innocent. This video has been available for years. Like I said, it's been up on that website for years. Sadly, since this case has been taking so long to get any movement, you know, Marnie's been in prison for 18 years, Dr. Cyril Wecht has died. And so now the defense would not be able to cross examine Dr. Wecht. So that could be a problem. Something else that they want to bring into court is an ESPN call that was to Sean Gale, um, alerting Sean Gale for allegedly the first time that his baby mama had been shot. Um, there's two exhibits, one that is exhibit 44, one that is 45. They're the same thing. One is the CD, and this CD is from June 12th, 2019. That is John Larson's report. These are the John Larson and Art Borchers are the ballistics experts. Um, the um, judge says they won't accept Weck's testimony by video. Um, Judd said there was no need to do an opening statement. So then Art Borchers was called to the stand at 9:43 a.m. Um, he is a forensic specialist, and both he and John Larson are retired. Um, Art Borchers is a retired cop, and John Larson is retired FBI. Um, they have done a full analysis of the crime scene. They have read police reports. They've seen the crime scene photographs. They've looked at physical evidence. They have been looking over all of this for 8 years that they've been part of this. Um, there have been some photos that were taken at the crime scene that had never been developed. And Team Marni Yang came across these photos. Um, October 2018 was the last time that they received any photos. And then here's where we come to a halt. Marni's attorney, Judd Stone, submitted an affidavit from Art Borchers. There's been an affidavit in the past, but for whatever reason, this was a new one that is now signed July 11th, 2025, so just 3 days ago. Judd said it was signed that day, but the state has had the affidavit for months. But then the state flipped out because they said this affidavit is 111 pages and that there is some handwritten evidence in there and photos that they have never seen before. Judd So the state was making it out like Jed was doing something to surprise the state with, and that they weren't given the proper time to go over this affidavit. Jed's defense was you don't get to hear testimony prior, and that's what an affidavit is basically. So this pissed the judge off. And so the judge then called a recess and said that we would go back to court at 1:30. So that meant 3 hours for us to sit around the courtroom or the courthouse. I went with Marni's mom and dad. We walked across the street from the courthouse to a cafe and got sandwiches and coffee, and I got tea to sit there. Marni called her mom while we were sitting there, and Marni at one point asked to talk to me, and so I talked to Marni. She was extremely upset. at this delay, because she said, this has been 18 years of taking away from her life and her kids and her parents, and all been waiting for this day, and to have her attorney drop the ball like this, she was very upset and now very anxious. She said the one positive that she was taking away from it is that the judge could have just said, "You're at recess. We will come back another day," and that now it would be pushed off till like September. Um, so she was just really upset, and I get it. So then we went back to the courthouse. I found out from the cop at the when you first walk into the courthouse, he said, "Did the attorney tell you they've changed which courtroom it is?" And I said, "No." So now instead of being on the 6th floor, we were on the 8th floor. And when we got in the elevator, there was a piece of paper that was taped in the elevator saying the Marni Yang case has been moved to such and such room. So we go up to the 8th floor. We sit outside of the courtroom like we did earlier. Um, I kept talking to people who worked at the courthouse because I know a lot of people were trying to get on the Zoom, a lot of press didn't come because once they were told they weren't going to be able to bring cameras in or anything, that they said they were just going to watch on Zoom. And then it turned out hardly anybody could get on the Zoom. So now that it moved courtrooms, I was asking the people, does this change the Zoom login? And they said no, it would be the same. So the family, we're all sitting out there, and we see the prosecutors go in carrying their boxes of evidence. And Marnie's attorney, Jed Stone, goes in with Art Borchers and John Larson, and they're carrying their um, display. And so we're just sitting out there. And when we originally left, um, the people that were doing the phone bags told me that, okay, since we're in recess till 1:30, um at 1:15 they will let us back into the courtroom. So I made sure we were back there by 1:15, but now nobody let us into the courtroom. So we were all sitting there, as was the press. And um 1:15 comes and goes. 1:30 comes and goes. 1:45 comes and goes. And then at like 1:50, we see the prosecutors walk out of the room carrying their boxes of evidence and go off to the elevators. And we're like, what is going on here? And then the reporter with the Chicago Tribune, she, for whatever reason, had been in the courtroom. None of the rest of us was in there, or the other press. She was in there. And so she walks out. And so it's like, asked her what happened. And she's like, the judge continued it. So we were not let back in the courtroom. We were not able to see what got said. Um, and the thing that upsets me the most is They then yanked Marnie out of there to send her back down to her prison, which is like a 4 hour drive from there. Um, and so she couldn't get one last look at her parents or her daughter. Because when we were in there in the morning, we're sitting right behind her and her attorney. They won't allow her family to hug her or touch her or anything like that, but she could at least see them. Um, and since I just talked to Marnie in between when we were at the courthouse, um, I know she was very fearful that they were going to continue it and push it back. And so it turns out there is now they scheduled a status hearing, hearing status for August 17th. So that's not something that Marnie would be brought up for. And that's not something any of us need to attend. It would just be watching on Zoom to then set the dates again for this evidentiary hearing, stage 3 evidentiary hearing again. So a lot of nothing. It's it's so unbelievably disappointing, and it's just more time stolen from Marnie. Her dad not in great health, her mom not in great health. Anything could happen. Every day is a big day that you lose. Um, I found out some stuff on what the state is planning on presenting. I don't know if that's anything I can talk about yet. Um, I don't know. So, yeah, there's not all that much for me to talk about on this video because we really thought we were supposed to be in court today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And now that's it until a status hearing just to set a date. And that's all. So, um, I will share any press that covers this so you guys can read it. But there's not all that much to say because nothing really happened. If you want to look at evidence and know things on the case, go to our website that is freemarniyang.com. And as soon as I know anything else with the case, I will let you all know. So I am going to end this video now. I guess I'll go to my other laptop and upload this to YouTube since Facebook doesn't keep live videos anymore longer than 30 days. And that'll be that. So thank you everybody for joining me, whether it was live or you're watching this later. And as always, investigation continues.